Pro-Chancellor, leadership of the university, dignitaries, guests, students, good afternoon. Bula. It's a great honor to have this opportunity to share with you the strategies of FijiAirWays. I was thinking how to approach this a couple of days ago, and I thought, well, if I just delve straight into the strategies, it could be pretty boring. And what might be far more useful, especially for the students, is to spend a bit of time taking you through the journey that we followed from when I came into the company. Now, as you heard from the introduction, between 2011 and 13, we went through a transformation or a reorganization of the company. That reorganization was focused on restoring the airline to profitability. The theme was cut, reduce, curtail, take every bit of expense we could out of the business, introduce new fuel-efficient aircraft, and start making a profit, but with very little investment. So when I joined at the end of 2015, it took me a couple of weeks to see that we needed investment in the company if those results would be sustainable. And I always use a joke. I always say I peeled back the veneer, and what I saw underneath was a company that desperately needed new tools, new investments, improvements in IT, in order for that profitability in the future to be sustainable. So I got the team together, and I use the word the FJ team. That's my leadership team. It's 8 executive general managers, and the balance up to 25 are general managers. There are about 6 of the 8 that are expatriates of the EGMs, and the rest are Fijians. And as a team, we got together and said, right, how are we going to make this business sustainable? So the first thing we did is a lot of diagnostics. I brought in specialists. I brought in Seabury, APG, who are leading airline consultants with very special tools. I brought in Skyworks, another aviation consultancy. We brought in Skytrax, who, as you know, is the leading rating agency of airlines around the world. We brought in Up Your Service, and we started digging into what was working and what was not, and where do we need to focus in terms of developing strategies for the future. Seabury have a tool called apg.net. It is every airline schedule, where they fly to every day, and the times they fly and who they connect with in this database. They populate it every day with the actual traffic that flew that day. They buy the data from MIDT, from ATPCO, and you can actually then, if you're in the database, which we are, you can calibrate it, first of all, to say, does it reflect what I flew yesterday? And you can say yes. And then you can start doing a lot of what-ifing. What if I add a flight? What if I enter the route? What will happen to the traffic that flows? They then introduced a model on top of it, a matrix, that they called Quality of Service Index. QSI actually measures the quality of your service based on the number of times you fly on a destination, the timing you fly, how friendly it is to the customer, and who you connect with. And according to that score, you can check your relative passengers to what you should be getting. And you can actually drill it right down to the agents or tour operators that are selling the tickets. So it's a massive tool that we can use to forecast what we can do in the business by way of changes. Skytrax, we brought them in and we said, listen, we're a 3-star airline. Why are we not a 4-star? Our 4-star airlines is an elite group of airlines. It's Qantas, it's Air New Zealand, it's Lufthansa, it's British Airways, it's Emirates, and we 3-star. There are 133 3-star airlines, and there's some 26 odd 4-star. 5-star, there are only 3. And these 3 are product inventors. They have no limit to the amount of money they'll invest in product. And it's not about at the end of the day, having a sustainably profitable business, but if I can have better product than you. And for example, Qatar is one of those 5-star airlines, and so is Hainan in China. So that's not where we're trying to be. We don't have the resources for that. But we want to be for at least a 4-star, because we're competing against 4-star. So Skytrax came in, and they started digging into every aspect of our service, right across from when you arrive at the airport until you collect your baggage at your destination. Onboard service, food quality, how we handle complaints afterwards, and gave us a gap analysis. A couple of box files of documents saying, here you're short, here you're above. And overall, we didn't do too bad. But we had a very clear roadmap where we needed to improve service going forward. And I'll talk more about Up Your Service. So from these diagnostics, we started realizing the direction and the strategies we needed to implement in the business. We needed growth, because you can't sustain profitability when costs are always rising and prices of air tickets don't have the same level of increments. Secondly, we needed to focus on differentiation. And thirdly is renewal. You know, we can never stop renewing in the business. So before I get into more on the strategy, I wanted to share with you and frame the realities that came out of these diagnostics. And some were touched on by yourself. So the first is, we're a far away destination-based airline. Yes, New Zealand's 3 hours away, Australia 4, but the rest are 10 hours away. So automatically our ticket prices are higher than airlines that serve 1 and 2 hour destinations. So huge domestic markets. Our domestic market is very small. We have limited frequencies. What do I mean by that? In the airline industry, we have a norm called 357. You never start a destination with less than 3 flights. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Then you add Tuesday and Thursday, so you go to 5. And then eventually daily 7. Because 7's a good service. Anything short of 7, there are challenges with it. And today, we're still an airline that has some destinations we serve twice a week. And simply because of the investment cost when you start a new destination. As a small airline with a small balance sheet, we can't just start a destination and fly 7 times a week. We'd go broke. So it's one of our inherent challenges. We're a second-tier airline. That means in every destination we fly, we don't set the price. We're a follower. We're second to Qantas. We're second to Air New Zealand. We're second to American Airlines. We're second to Cathay Pacific. We have a suboptimal fleet. We have 18 aircraft in 4 types, 4 lots of engineers, 4 lots of pilots, 4 lots of everything that's required to operate those aircraft. And that in itself is a major challenge. So we don't have scale. Scale is a big problem. And that, of course, means that our costs have to be very lean. Because we don't have scale, I need to compensate for it with a very lean, structured business. Costs continue to spiral upwards. You know, every single year we have all the costs going up 3 or 4 or 5%, but revenue doesn't grow every year by 3 or 4 or 5% in terms of airfares. Airfares have been pretty sluggish and flat for many, many years. And recently, we've seen fuel price go from $55 a barrel 18 months ago to $90 a barrel today for jet kerosene fuel. Every $10 is $50 million off our bottom line. And I need to find cost savings or fare increases or grow the business, a combination to offset the $50 million. We have currency exposure. The bulk of our revenues earned in Australian dollars. Australia and New Zealand is 65% of our traffic. The US is 20%. And yet 75% of our costs are US dollar based. So I earn AUDs, Australian dollars, and I have to convert them to US dollars. I hedge a part of that so we can manage the transactional currency risk. But what I can't hedge is what we call transactional risk, which you get at the end of the financial year. All our dollar loans at the end of the year have to be revalued into Fijian dollars. If the Fijian dollar weakens against the US dollar, I get a notional debit in my income statement. And that can wipe the business out. And 3 of our Airbus A330s are owned, where we have foreign loans. And every year when it comes to the 31st of December, we all say, please dollar, go down, go down. Because if it moves by a few points, we score. If it goes up, we lose. And in 2016, we took a 39 million debit in the income statement because of the US dollar went to 208 to the Fijian dollar on the 31st of December and dropped to 204 on the 1st of January. So these are the difficulties that we have over and above transactional currency risk. Revenue and yield are always under pressure, and people are always looking for discounts, and they're not looking to pay more, yet costs go up. And there's little prospects for us to offset these higher costs with ticket prices. So that I tell my team every day, we have a challenged business model and it's here to stay. We've got to be smarter and better all the time to keep stepping up more and more. In other words, punching way above our weight to offset that business model. Talking of business models, Seabury have a very nice explanation of the 4 types of airlines that you get in the world. On the far left, where it says revenue at the bottom, is the national developer. This is an airline whose sole purpose is grow the country. They use it as a tool. It's very nice if they own an oil well as well, which they have in the case of Emirates and Qatar and Etihad, and they substantially assisted by government. I won't say subsidized, but no one really knows the truth. But these airlines don't worry about profit and yields. They worry about people through the country. Dubai this year, Emirates will bring 49 million people in and out of Dubai. That's what they have been created for. Then you get the network carrier. Historically, these airlines were also national developers. They also had as a key purpose, build their country. But the problem is they're not subsidized. They're not assisted in any way. They have to make it on their own. And so what they've had to do over the years is start becoming networks. Now, a network means there's a certain pie of traffic you can take from your country, but there's a limit. And at some point, you have to take passengers from another country through your country to another country, network them through. And that's the only way you can grow revenue and traffic. And these airlines like Lufthansa, like British Airways, like Qantas, have had to become network carriers in order to augment and grow revenue, because there's a set size the country is. And that's where we are. So where does FijiAirWays fit in? We are a network carrier. Out of LA, and this is quite interesting, there are only 190 people per day that travel from LA to Nandi and back. And the plane we fly is a 300-seater. So how do I fill the balance? I can't fly with 190 people. If we could only do that, I could only do 3 flights a week. I do dailies today, and I do it by connecting people through. So 30 to 40% of the traffic we carry from LA today to Nandi connects through to Australia, New Zealand, and the South Pacific Islands. And if we didn't do that, we would have a 3 times a week flight to LA. So being a network carrier is critical to the growth and the development of the airline. Then on the far right, we have the low-cost airline. These are the guys who provide minimum service. They prefer to be called low fare. And you pay for what you get. I always say there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there, because by the time you add up everything you pay, it's not cheaper than what we call a legacy or full service carrier's fee. Then in the third column on the right is the new world carrier, or what we call the hybrid. These are the guys who are network carriers, but they've been smart enough to rip cost out, and they've done it through innovation. And one of the best examples in the world that have achieved this is Air New Zealand. So we watch what they do and learn a lot. Right, just to give you an idea of, when I talk in frame, our challenges, look at our scale. 18 aircraft versus Air New Zealand's 105, Qantas 131, Emirates 267, and American 953. You can see the passengers per annum and the staff. So we're really a very small little airline in context. However, we punch above our weight. We give them a run for their money in places. We are a significant economic contributor. Here you can see our successive passenger growth over the last 4 years. And in 17, we grew 11%, and this year, we're going to grow roughly 12.6%, nearly 13%. And I'll talk more about growth later on. We're also a significant foreign currency generator for the country. We keep it in the country. So if we didn't fly and another airline flew here in and out and there was no FijiAirWays, all this foreign currency would lie outside the country. Yes, we pay a lot of it out again, but we are the generator that gives the country a lot of money. I thought then, as part of the framing, I'll just spend a few minutes on air access. And I'm going to try and demystify this issue of open skies. International flights are controlled by what we call air service agreements. There cannot be a flight between a foreign country and Fiji unless there's an air service agreement between Fiji's sovereignty and that country. And these air service agreements regulate how you fly. It's very different to domestic. In the domestic market, you're regulated by a law which is pretty much based on whether there's a need. So if I want to start a domestic airline against FijiLink or against any other carrier, I have to go to the licensing council and show competency first of all. I've got money and I've got the skill, and then I've got to show need, that there's a need for another airline to serve those markets. If I can't demonstrate need, then you're not going to get in. And of course, the existing airlines will strongly object that they are meeting the need. In international, there's no need issue. It's a country-to-country negotiation. And at this stage, there are 28 ASAs signed by Fiji and all those countries I've listed there. And what's interesting is that in all those countries, there are airlines who choose not to fly here. Why do they choose not to fly here? They don't see an economic proposition. Because if you fly here, if you fly once a day, you've got to fill 300 seats or 400 seats. If you fly 3 times a week, it's 3 times that. And if you don't see the prospect for it, you're not going to fly. And that's why most of these countries have airlines that don't fly here. They don't see the traffic. So if we take the United Kingdom, they don't see 300 people from the UK today wanting to come to Fiji per flight. And that's why they're not flying. There are basically 3 types of ASAs. There's the traditional, there's the liberal, and there's the open skies. The traditional is quite restrictive to some extent. The liberal, of course, has taken a lot of those prescriptions away, and open skies have none. So our deal with Australia is a deal where there's 6,500 seats per week between Australia and Fiji for ourselves and the Australian carriers. Now, I can assure you, 6,500 seats are not filled every week. In peak times, we put extra flights on, but at off-peak, we're very lucky if we can get a 70 or 80% capacity utilization, a load factor. So governments on both sides watch this, and we will ensure we're not throttling the opportunity for growth. But it's the only route that we have in our network where it's still the old traditional ASA. New Zealand is liberal. There are no seat restrictions. They can fly what they like when they like, up and down between Auckland and Nandi. And we also have beyond points where you can connect beyond what we call fifth freedom rights. So it's very liberal. In the case of the USA, it's total open skies. Any American airline tomorrow can fly to Fiji however many times they want and charge what they want. And in the case of Hong Kong, it's also very liberal. So the notion that, oh, we're stopping tourism to the country because of open skies and there's no open skies, well, it's not true. With the exception of Australia, where there's still some seat restrictions, all the others are very liberal. Now, what do we mean by open skies? It's a highly liberalized air service between sovereignties that allows it complete unrestricted access. And there are a lot of promises with it. There's promises you're going to boost frequencies, you're going to enhance connectivity, will increase traffic. What it does do, sorry, I'll go on, is that. Chaos. Because there's a lot of history to show that uncontrolled liberalizing does not create win-win situations. The only people who score are the large airlines that have a lot of capacity, who come in to take the buck, and as soon as things get tough, they disappear. And there's a history in the last 10 years of more than 80 small airlines that have basically failed as a result of open skies that have, in most cases, been granted. So there is no evidence that it is the right thing to do, and it would be a serious risk to the country from a strategic perspective if you opened the skies and you had no managed control of how you liberate. So here's a list, for example, of all the airlines that have failed in the last 10 years. And many of them were national carriers. So the way we see the future as FijiAirWays, of course, we're recommending to government they continue with a policy of controlled liberalization, but liberalize as it makes sense, because you do want to grow tourism and we can't do everything. So we're happy to have reasonable competition. All right, so I've set the scene. The scene is, we're always going to be challenged. We're a small airline. We have limited scale, and we have some severe competitors with much bigger scale than us. And we need to step up. We need to constantly punch above our weights. So we then developed a method to build and implement our strategies. And the method we've used comes from a performance management system called ECAPS. Now, ECAPS was founded by Clem Santner and Clive Howie, who were strategists at Anglo American and De Beers in South Africa, largest gold mine operation and diamond operations. And they used to sit in the boardroom with the leadership every year and do strategies for their 170 companies. And 6 months later, they would review it, and a year later, and they'd say, well, everything we'd spoke about in the boardroom stayed in the boardroom. Very little was executed and implemented. How can we get this down to grassroots levels? How do we make sure strategies get implemented? And they developed this methodology called ECAPS, or CAPS. CAPS stands for Compass Aligned Performance System. But the concept was, if we can get the strategy on one page for the company or the corporate, and then a strategy of one page for every department, and it's prepared, the strategies developed by the people, we're going to have something they buy into and they'll live with. So I'll show you more of ECAPS a little later on, but this is how ECAPS flows. It starts with the team confirming the strategic role. So yes, we've done our diagnostics, we understand what's working, what's not, we understand where the focus needs to be, but the first thing we have to say is, what's our purpose? That drives our mission. Once we've confirmed our mission, it informs our vision. Then the team sits and says, right, where are the values? Now, FijiAirWays had values, so we had to ask ourselves, are they still valid? Do we change them? And in fact, we endorsed them. We felt they were still very applicable. The team then develops critical success factors. These are goals or areas that we need to deliver on in order to achieve the mission. Once the team had the critical success factors, they then developed the strategic objectives in order to deliver those critical success factors. And for each objective, the person who has the responsibility for that objective does an individual performance agreement, where they sign and commit by certain dates to do certain steps, actions. And then this turns into KPIs and it's monitored by the ECAP system. Now, all of this is driven through ECAPs. We sit in meetings, we brainstorm the critical success factors, they load it into ECAPs, and out pops a one-page strategy document. And you load in your performance agreements, and I, as CEO, every day will get an email. Joe never did his thing on time. Peter hasn't delivered this. So suddenly, right from the top, I have ownership to see whether the strategy is being implemented. And that's the ECAP system. So I thought, to add a little bit of fun today, I'd like you to engage with me on some of these aspects. And I want you to start by rubbing your hands together. Please rub your hands together. Rub, 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 rub. Turn to the person to the right of you, give them a high five and say, hello, partner. Now, if you don't have someone you can do it with, 3 or fine. All right. So I'm going to ask you with your partner to do certain things. So here are the values. We accepted the values. And here's ECAPs. And you can see it's a one-page document that starts with our vision. Then it has our values. It has the critical success factors, all the strategic objectives, and the KPIs. And everybody in the company walks around with it. They all understand where the company's going. This is then replicated for each department. And what stays constant for the departments, the vision, the values, and the critical success factors. You'll see here it says 3150. Everyone understands that in 3 years we want to make 150 million profit. So there's no confusion where we're going. It's 3150. We're in year 1 of that 3150 because we updated our 5-year master plan last year, the end of the year. So we've got a 5 and a 10-year master plan where we used Seabury with that model to tell us what opportunities exist in the future for new routes and where we're going. Because in an airline, your network, where you fly to, how often you fly, the times of the day you fly and who you connect with determines the airline. That determines how many aircraft you need, it determines how much staff you need, it determines service you can give, it determines everything. So your network drives the business, and that's the core of it. So 3150, where we're going to in 3 years is a profit of 150, and then we'll get more into the other detail. So our method we're using is the ECAPS method. It's very simple. It starts with what is our strategic intent, what's our purpose, therefore what's our vision. It informs our mission, then our vision. Then we start by layering in. What are the critical success factors? What are the strategic objectives? So our strategic role drives our mission. And I want you to turn to your partner now. And I want you to have a 2-minute discussion. What do you think our strategic role is as FijiAirWays? If you're not next to someone, it's fine. But if you are, please have a chat. And the person with the longest hair starts first. So what do you think our strategic role is as FijiAirWays? No. You've got no hair. So we're only going to take a minute or two. I just want you to participate in as we build up the strategy. So what do you think our strategic role is? Talk to your partner. So FijiAirWays had founding principles when it was originally established. And the first was that we had to be the strategic link for a nation in the middle of the South Pacific in terms of domestic and international requirements. We had to assist in the development of the tourism sector. We had to assist in the development of the export sector. We needed to be a sustainable, self-funded airline because there's no oil well to back us up every month if we don't make money. Our inherent objective was to be the national airline and also to act as the ambassador around the country. So rebranding us to FijiAirWays is one way that we've become a very strong ambassador at every airport we fly, to focus on customers and empower employees. And these founding principles, when the team worked through it, we believed were still relevant and drives our mission. What was very important in this was to take into account that we have a dual role. We needed to be sustainably profitable, but also to invest in national interest. And how much do you do in national interest and how profitable should you be? And of course, the obvious answer is balanced. And that's why you can see the little arrow at the bottom. So our role is to be a profitable national airline that balances profitability with national interest. So here we've defined it. Our core objectives are to have sustained profitability, support inbound tourism and home originating market, Fijians traveling abroad, grow with smart investment, deliver exceptional service with a Fijian touch, and create a culture that encourages innovation and efficiency and rewards creativity. And then the statement, we are the national airline connecting our country to the world. And also, we are committed to delivering sustained profitability in a socially responsible manner. So you can see how we took what our founding principles were, we reconfirmed them as a team and said, right, what does that drive? An airline that's going to be profitable in order to get more aircraft, in order to start new destinations, in order to meet that commitment of growing tourism and exports. But we've got to be profitable. Because the day we're not profitable, we'll be firing people and we won't be able to get aircraft. So the two are both our key responsibilities, but we need to balance it. And what comes out of that mission is obviously we've got to grow revenue. We've got to sustain profitability by controlling costs. All airlines use the same aircraft, have the same food, have the same seats. So what we need to do is be different, and hence we welcome you to our home. Because we understand airlines have personalities, and our personality is very special. I always use the joke and say, what is Lufthansa's personality? It's very Germanic. It's, they use the example of the cabin crew going down the aisle and with a box of chocolates in business class and going, chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. She gets to the end, throws the box in, no one had a chocolate. When you go to Singapore Airways, she'll come and say, Mr. Smith, this is my favorite. How about this one? She needs 6 boxes of chocolates to do the aisle. So we say they have personalities. So Lufthansa's Germanic. We say that Singapore's condescending. They all fit a mold. They don't look in your eyes, they walk. If they make one mistake, they're fired. They're all graduates. What is Emirates' personality? What do you think? They don't have one. Because painted on their crew bus, they're trying to convince themselves many nationalities equals one personality. Not true. So when you get on board Emirates, they'll say, oh, ladies and gentlemen, today we talk 27 languages. 27 personalities. If you get an Indian lady serving you, wonderful. If you get an Eastern Bloc serving you, but cold. So they don't have a personality. What is British Airways' personality? Stiff, snobbish, isn't it? So I always give the example. Many years back, I got a free ticket on British Airways. So as I got on board, I sat down, and this guy taps me on the shoulder, and I was in business class. He says, sir, you cannot sit in business class with sneakers on. Sneakers? I looked and I had my new Nikes. I'd just been to Nike Town in Regent Street. He said, no, you're on a rebate ticket, you have to have leather shoes. I said, why? He said, that's our rule. They made me get off, go into duty free, buy leather shoes and come back on, or get off completely. So when I asked him why, he said, well, what do you think Prince Charles will think if he walks past and sees you sitting here in sneakers? So what is our personality, Fiji Airways? Bula shirts. Eh? Well, we can never be a Singapore Airlines. We can never be a British Airways, but we can be ourselves, which is this warm, I call it authentic warm hospitality. And that is why we chose Welcome to Our Home. Because when you walk in someone's home, you're relaxed and it's warm, it's comfortable. But I must always tell you, I was telling Shanaz the other day, there's always a lesson in this. If you look at the English dictionary and you take the definition of homely, it means comfortable, warm. In the US dictionary, it means sloppy, lousy, ugly. So you know, we win on one and lose on the other. But our theme is homely. Come into our home, we make it very comfortable. And that's FijiAirWays. So someone said to me the other day, what about Fiji time? Well, that's what Fiji time is. It's comfortable, it's homely. It cannot be an excuse for sloppy service, but it can be warm and comfortable. So that now brings me to the next slide, which is our vision is informed by our mission. So what is our vision? To be the most desired, most flown and most profitable airline in the South Pacific. What do I mean by desired? Well, if we deliver delightful service, people will rather fly us than an airline that doesn't give delightful service. Why the most flown? The bigger our network, the more partners we have, the more destinations are served, the more people will fly us. And lastly, we've got to be profitable. Otherwise, we won't exist. So the staff understand this. They understand very clearly how we've got to drive desire, how we've got to keep growing the network, and how we need to be profitable. And that an unprofitable airline won't exist. Which then brings me to the next stage in this method that we're doing our strategy, which is the critical success factors. These are the high-level goals which are essential to achieve our mission and strategy. So our team sat down and we brainstormed these critical success factors, these high-level goals, and then we benchmarked it against all the airlines we could to say, what do they have? Do they see it the same way we do? What are the lessons we can learn from it? So now I want you to turn to your partner, now the one with the least hair starts first. What do you think some of these critical success factors should be for an airline like FijiAirways? 2 minutes. Okay, can I have you back? So these are the 9 critical success factors that FijiAirways team put together. Of course, safety and security is number 1 always in an airline because it's never compromised. We will never do a flight if it's not safe. Or you know, we'll rather park it and get upset passengers, but that's one of the basic cornerstones of an airline. People, to attract and retain and grow great people. Service quality for customers. We want to consistently delight our customers by providing unique travel experiences in a genuine Fijian way. Network, where you fly to, how often you fly, who you connect with, needs to be improved, as well as connectivity with partners, and of course revenue management is very important. So we want to ensure a profitable network with connectivity growth and effective revenue management. Now, what do we mean by revenue management? We have seats, and we have an aircraft that once it departs, you can't sell the seat anymore. So it spoils. So we've got to try and sell every seat by the time it takes off. And there's a basic principle that says there are people with a lot of time and little money who will buy early. And then there are the people with a lot of money and little time who will buy late. So what we do is we'll take the early buyers and give them cheap flights. And then the last few guys, we sting them because we've held the seat. Now, why we charge them a premium is because if I don't sell it, I've lost it. So I hold it, but I'm going to make you pay for me holding it. And that's the concept of revenue management. So we start with every flight and every destination, and we have these fare levels. And we allocate the seat inventory to those fare levels and move it up and down. We have algorithmic tools that forecast based on history and other factors what we think it's going to look like, and we decide how much inventory to put at each level. And our revenue management people have an incentive. I want to sell everything at the highest price. But you're not going to sell everything there. And how do they move it up all the time? So when I see them, they're always busy moving it up. And that's their job. Because we want to maximize the revenue by the time the flight leaves. And we cannot sell a seat that's unsold tomorrow morning. It's not an apple on the shelf that you can sell. Strategic partnerships drive international growth by forging strong airline and other strategic partnerships. Our branding, marketing, sales and distribution to grow a profitable customer base in all markets. Financial performance, we want to embed a financial framework to ensure profitable growth, relentless cost management and capital discipline and risk management. Operations, always maintain reliability and integrity, and innovation, drive system and process improvements through innovation. So those are the broad goals. And then there are strategic objectives to achieve each one of them. So I now get to the strategic objectives, and I want to take number 3, customer service quality, and I want you to turn to your partner. And what are the objectives, specific steps you think we should follow to achieve this objective? Consistently delight our customers by providing a unique travel experience in a genuine Fijian way. How would you go about achieving that goal? That critical success factor. Talk to your partner. Either of you can start first. What steps would you take to achieve this? Right, come back to me. I will share with you how we went about determining these strategic objectives or steps. The first thing we did is we got Up Your Service and Skyworks to sit with us and Skytrax and do a simple analysis. What our customers want and are prepared to pay for. So we did that research. And I'm only going to deal with one item, the top item, which is a delightful travel experience on both a functional and emotional level. But you can see all the rest. Clear communication, satisfaction with food and beverage, quality lounge facilities. So all these things, you'll see later on how we've achieved these. And many of them are still work in progress, but the bulk we've achieved. So dealing with this thing of delightful service, we did a lot of research and established that customer experience, which is delightful, needs 2 key components. You've got to meet the functional expectation, and you've also got to meet their emotional expectation. Now, what do I mean by functional? You don't choose an airline because the engines work, and the toilet works, and the seat works. You choose it because of the experience you get. So customers automatically expect great functional experiences. There's nothing worse than when you pay a business class seat and you get in and the seat doesn't work and you fly the whole way sitting like this. You know, you'll never fly the airline again. So I always say to our staff, it's a given, automatic expectation the functional side works 100%. What is the emotional expectation? We've got to engage the senses and we've got to have the right behavior. We've got to have that warm, friendly, caring behavior. When we engage the senses, we're talking about seeing, smelling, tasting, and hearing. So here's an interesting analysis. What are deposits in the delight account and what are withdrawals in that delight account? So a deposit is a product or service that delivers more than expected. A holistic customer experience positively engaging 3 or more senses. An uplifting interaction with an employee. A warranty honored, no questions asked. Getting very good value for money. A customer complaint handled with respect and transparency. Willingness to admit a mistake and correct it as well as quickly as one can. An ease of interaction with a business. What are withdrawals? A product or service that fails to deliver what is expected. A shallow customer experience. A dull, downbeat, or conflict-ridden interaction with someone in the organization. Failure to honor a warranty. overcharging, leaving the customer feeling ripped off, unwillingness to admit to when a mistake has been made and failure to fix it quickly and transparently, and making it difficult to transact. So we very quickly established at FijiAirWays that we had challenges on the behavioral side. Yes, we were warm and friendly, but we often promised customer things that we didn't deliver. We have a flight disruption, and we say to the customer, "Oh, don't worry, Mr. Smith, someone's waiting for you the other side, they've got a hotel booked," and then he gets out there and there's no one. So these are behavioral issues that we had to address. And we realized we needed to change the culture. Now, we wouldn't be able to do it on our own. We needed to create a centric service culture, so we brought in Up Your Service from Singapore. Ron Kaufman, who heads up Your Service, is considered one of the leading service specialists in the world. He's the man behind Singapore Airways service, Changi Airport, Raffles, Lux in Mauritius, and so it goes on. And huge experience in how you transform culture. The first step we had to do with Up Your Service is define a service vision and set service objectives. So yes, we've got the corporate vision to be the most desired, most flown, and most profitable, but what is our service vision? And from our values, one of our values in the company is to work as one, to work as a team and to work individually, be accountable individually. So we used that value and said, let our service vision be, we're going to all work together and individually to step up, to do something every day that is different to what you did yesterday, that is giving service to the customer. But we had to get things right first, and that's where objectives came in. We had to perfect the basics. It's no good I hold my staff accountable to deliver that quality service and we don't load the food. And they've got to go and apologize to every passenger and say the food wasn't loaded or the menus weren't loaded. So if the basics aren't right, you can't deliver the service. When we do improvements, they have to be creative. And that's where we benchmark and we really think innovatively in the business. We've got to deliver the service with care and passion. And that's Fiji. Fiji is care and passion from the heart. That's our service ethic that we have as an airline and that we say the country should keep developing. Everybody is a service leader. This is nonsense that I'm a leader and you're not. We all service leaders. We can all step up in our interaction with a customer and lead. And we demand service excellence. We're completely intolerant of our providers who do not deliver. We fire them instantly. So we've come up with tough demands. So in this program with Ron Kaufman, it's all based on changing the culture. How do you change culture? Through action. If everybody in the company is taking a step up and becoming centric focused on service, you'll start moving the culture. So Ron, for example, one of the cornerstones of changing the culture is, we call it a building block, is a common service language. We all have to understand service the same way. So I want you to talk to your partner quickly and ask your partner to define service. Service is, please talk to your partners. What is service? What is defined service? Service is? Okay, so I'll stop here and I want to jump around the room quickly. Lady, the gentleman with the white shirt here, with a beard. Service is, define it for me.
Everything a company will deliver except the food.
Okay. Just behind you, we've got a gentleman with a bula shirt. How would you define service?
Service, to me, it would be what we provide so that the customer is satisfied with.
So do you see how just in a few people, there's no common definition? So when Ron Kaufman walked into FijiAirWays and he put 1,000 people at a time in a room and he said, define service, there were hundreds of different views of what service is. So it all starts with an education. Service is taking an action to create value for someone else. If there's no action, there's no service. It can only be for someone else, can't be to yourself. It can be to your wife, it can be to your friend, it can be to a customer, it can be to a work colleague who we call a service partner. So it's an action for someone else. But if it doesn't add value, they're not interested, are they? Then it's not a service. So every person at FijiAirWays today, if you say service is, I'll tell you, taking action, then you say, have you taken action to give value to someone else? And that's the education we've taken the company through. Ron introduced 6 levels of service. Most people want expected service, but expected service isn't delightful. Desired service is. Now, let me give you an example. You walk in the restaurant, and the waiter has a process. Good afternoon, can I show you to a table, seats you down, hands you a menu, takes the napkin out, puts it on your lap, asks you for a drinks order, disappears, then comes back, takes the menu order from you, then he goes, but in the meantime brings you a basket with bread to keep you busy, then eventually brings you drink, then your food. Right at the end, he clears your plate, then brings you the dessert menu, and then finally the bowl. I walk in, I'm a business person, I'm in a hurry, I know the restaurant. I don't want all of that. I want to say to him as I sit down, this is what I want to eat, and I want the bill immediately. What have I done to his process? Screwed it up. In walks a family with little kids. What do they want? They want the kiddies to be served first, menus to be given, colouring sheets, crayons, and maybe then the process. Another gentleman walks in with a girlfriend on his arm. What does he want? A dark corner. But when he holds his... when he holds his hand up, he wants instant service. How do you now get a waiter to do all those processes? He's going to have a manual and say, person on the arm, process number 27. Doesn't work like that. So you only teach one process. In fact, you train the process. But what you do is you educate them in service. You educate them to immediately establish a rapport with a customer and say, oh, sir, I've got the right spot for you, when he sees the girlfriend on the arm, and he puts them in a dark corner, automatically, without asking. So it becomes what we call anticipatory service. You see a family walking and say, hello kiddies, I've got the crayons ready, and I've got the kiddies menu ready. What do you think the parents will say? They know us, we'll come back here. That's what service is. So it's anticipatory service that is based on education and not training of a process. You train a process, you educate service. So when Ron took us through the levels, the worst level of service you can give is criminal. And every person at FijiAirWays, if you do this, knows you've just done something criminal. So we have signs for all of this, and we've taken every service transaction and we've analyzed it, and we said, is what we're doing now, in a service transaction, they used to use the word touch points. Today it's called perception points, because some things may not be touches. They may just be what you think. So we take every service transaction in a company, we take every perception point, and we analyze, is what we're doing criminal, basic, expected, desired, and where is it on that level? And our aim is to deliver desired service, because desired service is delightful service. But what you do today is expected tomorrow. So what is service excellence? It is stepping up all the time to keep delivering desired service. Now you can see our service vision. Work as one to step up all the time to keep delivering desired service. So this was then the objectives that our team put together. And you can see, continue with service and product improvements, implement Skytrax, continue with our Up Your Service program, develop a strong CRM capability so we know every customer well and we don't have to re-ask them every time in that engagement to understand their wants and desires. And lastly, to have a service recovery process that can be immediate. If you fix it immediately when it happens, they won't complain afterwards and deal with a negative that you have. These are all the strategic objectives for each of those critical success factors. I'm not going to go through them all. And here's the final ECAPS document. Those strategic objectives are the ones I just showed on the previous slide. So I now go to the next section, and we finish with the interaction. I'm going to run through as quick as I can what we've achieved for each critical success factor and the strategic objectives in the past 2 years and a few months. And I made sure the finger's the right way. So, firstly, on safety and security, which is about an uncompromisable safety regime, we have got both our airlines, FijiLink and FijiAirWays, that are IOSA compliant. This is the airline association in the world, IATA, that come and do an independent audit to say, are you an airline that we would recommend passengers fly on? Is your safety at that level in the company? And I can tell you, FijiLink's the only airline, domestic airline, that has this rating, and it's a very special rating. You go through an extensive audit to get it. And no airline, big airline, will code share with you if you don't have an IOSA accreditation. In terms of people, which is growing and retaining great people, of course, the up your service, first of all, we have a systemic leadership process that we're developing in the company. We're teaching our teams to be systemic. Now, this is a new field of study. It's not about a system. It's about the connections in the system. So if we have an aircraft that's disrupted, it's technically can't fly, you've got passengers you've got to take off, you've got to put them in hotels, book them on new flights. These things invariably, I always say, our objective must be to turn tragic to magic. Well, sometimes we make tragic worse. And it's because you often find there's a disconnect in between elements of the system. And so systemic leadership is focusing on those connections that should work to make the system work. So I'll give you an example. We had weather problems in Nandi a few months back, and I'm sitting at home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I get this SMS from the Attorney General that says, what the hell is going on? You've got an aircraft on the tarmac for 5 hours. The people have been sitting in for 5 hours. They're on their way to Melbourne, and no one's spoken to them. So I said, how can that be? So I get hold of our head of operations. I chewed his ear off. He chewed someone else's ear off. And what did we find out happened? The flight was ready to go. They boarded the passengers. They had full crew, but we were short of crew that night because they were stuck all over in Latoka, and there were rivers they couldn't get through. So we couldn't get our crew to the airport. So they were juggling the crew around. And somebody in operations, they got a control center, said, oh, don't put them on the Melbourne flight, take them off and put them on the Sydney flight. So they'd already boarded the passengers, they were closing the door, when someone came along and said, no, the person must now go to the Sydney flight. We've got someone else coming from Melbourne, or it took 5 hours for that someone else to arrive. In the meantime, they left the passengers on board for 5 hours. Now, where were the connections that failed? Why didn't management talk to OCC, operations control? Why didn't they talk to the captain? We could have taken the passengers off and put them in the business class lounge, and they'd understand. It's not our fault they're floods and the people can't come to work, but at least don't let them sit waiting, and everybody waits. And the captain keeps saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're leaving in 15 minutes. 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. Listen, after 5 hours, you don't love the captain, believe me. So systemic leadership's one of the things we're doing. We implemented the Hay job grading system for all our staff to ensure there's equity in the way we grade jobs and pay salaries. Had a very positive impact. There's ECAPS, which has been implemented fully now. Step-up plans. All the staff that go through the Up Your Service program, which is every staff member, has to prepare a step-up plan every month. And every month we hold their hand to the fire. Did you step up? Did you meet your commitments? And in fact, the performance management system drives that as well. So we're not only making sure that we take them through the program of changing the culture, we get the change through the action. They have to step up. They're monitored and they're taken to task if they don't. We've gone through the entire organization, every department, and we've benchmarked against best practice in the world. And wherever we needed to, we've reinvented those departments. Here's some examples. We've got a dedicated interior team. Every time I fly, I find something wrong. I went to the toilet, I picked up the lid, it came off in my hand because the hinge is broken. I then look, they used glue to stick the hinge. Now, I go to engineering and say, hey guys, how do you think it's ever going to work? So we've now got a team who get on board every day and they drive, making sure the aesthetics are right. Because I always say, if you get on board and the toilet's broken, you wonder if the engine's broken. So it's so important from the aesthetics in the plane. We have very advanced engineering systems that monitor everything that happens on an aircraft to ensure we don't miss stuff. So very important. We've got an IT discovery, a recovery facility up and running, and we used to do load control in Prague. We now do it in-house. Now load control is the number of passengers, their weights, the baggage, and the cargo has to balance with what the aircraft can take off with. So depending on the weather and the conditions and whether there's an obstacle at the end of the runway, you've got to balance all that. And we used to feed all the information before every flight to Prague. It's now done in Nandi. Saved a lot of money and we got better control on it. In terms of customer, so of course the Ron Kaufman program is the biggest aspect of customer. 96% of our staff have already attended the 2-day workshop. There's Shane. We've now started phase 2, which is called application sessions, where all the staff have been educated. And in that education, they learned how to take every transaction and look at every perception point, rate it, and understand how to do that. Now they need to fix it. So the application sessions are where we take every service transaction through a process, a systemic process, and we drive correction and improvement of those processes. Here you can see the service transaction on the the first block on day 2, and you see those dots. Those dots are the perception points, and one of the things we're driving is when you look at a transaction, don't forget about see, hear, touch, and smell, because it's something we never think of. If you get on board and there's this beautiful smell of an island, not smelly shoes, you're going to feel very different about your experience. So that's how the Achieving Superior process works. They get educated. They then in day 2 look at the perception points of transactions, and it ends off where we make them sign a commitment. You take personal responsibility as the course ends to step up every day. So we teach them, look in the mirror every morning and say to yourself, what am I going to step up today? What am I going to do to my colleague that I work with to step up? Because many people don't serve customers, they serve colleagues. So when I do a schedule for a colleague, if I'm in finance, I don't do a half job, throw it on his desk and walk away. I do it as best I can. I say, hello, John, are you happy? Can I do more for you? That's stepping up. The other 12 building blocks, those with the green border are the ones that we've chosen to implement first. And you can see the common service language, the engaging service vision we've done, the service communications we've done, recognition and rewards you'll see in a moment. Voice of the customer is listening to the customer, doing surveys and so on. Service improvements and recoveries that we're working on. There are a few more that we'll do later on. So it's a journey we're on. In terms of rewards and recognition, anybody who has stepped up, any staff member can nominate them for an award. The first level of the awards are Bronze Star. When they got 4 bronzes, they get a silver. When they get 4 silvers, they get a gold. And the silver and gold have huge holiday and cash incentives attached to them. To date, we've had 215 staff with bronzes, 7 have got silver, and I've also got a separate award. I've got a Wananavu card, well done card, and Shanaz and I have cards with a signature on. If my and her signature on, the staff member we give it to, who has stepped up, $1,000 immediately in their back pocket. And they get a bronze reward, in some cases a silver. So we're very conscious of rewarding the people. Surprise. You do something special, I see it, you're going to get $1,000. In terms of service quality, we've got a new lounge at Nandi Airport. It's been rated enormously positively. We've got a full-time chef and celebrity chefs. And we've also got a premium service team who meet and greet you at curbside. So if you are one of our new Tamboa Plus members, because we've upgraded the scheme to work with One World, you will be met at curbside. They will take you by your hand, and they will take you through check-in, they'll take you to the lounge, they take you to the aircraft. So I'll tell you the story. Many, many years back, I was driving to the airport, and I got this call that said, "Hello, Andre, are you near the airport?" I just joined FijiAirWays. And I said, "Yes, I'm up the road." They said, "We're waiting for you at curbside. We have your boarding card, we've got your baggage tags, because I believe you've got 2 bags, and everything's ready." So I get there, so they meet me, they give me my boarding card, they take me through into the lounge, onto the aircraft. So I said to the staff member, "Wow, our customers must love this." They said, "No, only you get it." So quickly changed that. Spoke to Shanaz. She created our ladies with a brown uniform. They are a premium service team. Our customers fight for it. We've got some people who don't qualify for Tamboa Plus. I get bugged all the time, so to see, why can't I get it? They meet you when you arrive as well. So that's our PST service. We've given iPads in our 737s that are being replaced until we replace them. And we've got a lot more movies and stuff we've done on board. This is the voice of the customer. We record it, by the way, that's in the lounge. And voice of the customer, we look at all the different social media sites. We look at how we're progressing. We get feedback forms from our customer. So service quality needs voice of the customer, which is the barometer that tells you whether you're doing well or not. We've now got online check-in for all our international flights, and we've got kiosks at the airport. That's our resort check-in at the Sofitel. We may roll it out to other hotels. So if you're on holiday, you don't have to go to the airport and rush and cut your holiday short on the last day. Early in the morning, you can hand your bags in, you get your boarding card, and you just go to the airport, go straight through security, immigration, to the lounge, or if you're not in business class, the economy passenger, and you will get an SMS, because we ask you for your mobile number to say your bag's on board. And to date, we haven't had one bag incident. So it's loved. We've got premium check-in at the airport. If you're a Tamboa Club member or you're a business class, it's a dedicated check-in. And we've already won some awards. One of the best magazines in the world, and we've won the Apex 4-star. So Apex is also a rating agency, but of course we want Skytrax. Apex is second best. Then if we go to the next 2 critical success factors, which are network and revenue management and airline partnerships, we've had a lot of growth. In 2017, we added Adelaide, San Francisco, year-round, and of course this year we're starting Japan. And in terms of code shares, we now have 14 code shares. What is a code share? Firstly, in order to have a code share, you have to do an interline agreement with an airline. You cannot do an interline if there's no ASA, so it starts with an ASA. Does the country allow you to sell on each other? If they do, you can then do an interline. An interline is a commercial agreement of how we're going to share the fare. I sell on them, they sell on me. Now, they sell on me, they collected the money, but they owe me some of the ticket value for my leg, and some they keep for their leg. How do you determine the sum? The best is what we call a straight rate prorate. We share it based on kilometers. Now, it all depends how big a bully the airline is that the small little airline does the deal with. When we go the first time, and I always say it's synonymous to a relationship, you first hold hands, then you hug and kiss, then other territories are explored. Well, it's the same with a code share. You first hold hands, and they give you a lousy prorate. They take all the money, you get zip. Then as you start on hugging that, they give you a bit more, and eventually you get a lot. So co-shares are interline agreements where there's more than just the sharing of the revenue. We appear together on the GDS system. So we have a global distribution system in the world where all travel agents and tour operators sell tickets through, and they sell it on airlines. And this GDS, when you walk in and say, I want to go to Fiji and you're in the UK, if you've got a co-chair with British Airways and they say BA, you'd appear up on the same screen with BA. If it's not a co-chair, you don't appear at all. It's just a commercial arrangement on the side. That's an interline. So co-chairs mean we market together, we share things together, we appear with them in the global distribution system. And we try and save costs together. We use lounges together, common lounges, common check-in. So there's a lot of advantage you can get from co-chairs. So we now have 14 co-chairs, very important to opening and feeding traffic to and from Fiji. And we have 43 interline agreements. So we've increased the destinations we serve by growing to 14 co-chairs to 108 destinations around the world. We only fly 20 destinations, but we have 108 that we're connecting traffic to and from. If we never did this, we wouldn't grow like we are. We wouldn't be able to grow like we are. We've just become a one world partner. This is a massive accolade for FijiAirWays. For a small little airline to be chosen by the 4 founders of One World, which is Qantas, Cathay Pacific, British Airways, and American Airlines, for our quality, to be chosen above all other airlines to be the first Connect partner in the world is a massive accolade. Now, what do we mean by Connect? We're not a full member. If you're a full member, you have to go and do IT connections with 13 airlines. The airlines will never feed traffic to and from, and it's just too expensive. So they've created a second-tier version where they're saying you can work with your sponsors and do everything that One World wants. Your people can get all the benefits, our people, but you don't have to do it with all 13 airlines. That's what this tier means. But we're still a One World member, and FijiAirWays is now on the global map. Standing next to me, we have on the far left, with the glasses, with the red tie, is the CEO of Finnair, who is the chairman of One World. Next to him, the CEO of One World. Holding the One World circle with me is the CEO of Qantas, Alan Joyce. Behind him, we've got the CEO of American Airlines, CEO of Cathay Pacific, and the CEO of British Airways, Iberia, IIG. So the heavyweights. To choose FijiAirWays is a massive accolade. What it means is a lot of benefit for Fijians in the future, but it also opens the UK for us. We hope to see a lot more European traffic through this code share. Then in sales and distribution, this is how we get more revenue, how we become smarter, how we distribute tickets. We now, of course, also have ancillary revenue streams. How do we get more money? And if I can sell a window seat, I can sell a seat behind the bulkhead, I can get a bit more money in the bank. We've got a Bulla bid upgrade system. You can go online and bid for the business seat, and it's an auction. And the person with the best quoted or tendered auction amount can get the seat. And we obviously have special prices, and we try and drive up business class seat sales. But we're very careful. It's got to be structured so that a regular traveller doesn't say, well, I'm never going to buy a business seat again because I know I'm going to get it here. So like all things, we've got to make sure it catches the new entrant as opposed to the regular flyer. We've also got our holiday system where you can do a package. It's a dynamic package system. You go in, you tell it the days you want to travel, it tells you what hotel inventory is available, and you dynamically package it. You do one payment, and it's shared between us and the hotels. And then I get to the last, or second or third last, which is financial performance. This is where we were all in the hangar committing to work as one, working as one to save costs, working as one to step up for the customer. We had a cost reduction program targeting 5% this year, and we will keep targeting higher levels as we go forward. Because as I mentioned earlier, what's key to us is to stay lean and mean to offset those challenges that we're going to inherently always have. I always tell my team, I've been in the industry nearly 40 years, been saving costs for 40 years. And I always say it's a carrot on the end of the stick, and we're always trying to get it. We never get it fully, because it's so difficult to cut costs. You've got to innovate to cut costs. Fuel price, a massive challenge for the business. It's gone up significantly in the last months. It's going to be a challenge for us this year. We do hedge it, but like all hedging, you can't buy 10 years hedging. We have a policy of 18 rolling months, and once it goes up, you get caught at some stage with a higher price. We've got a fleet modernization program. We've upgraded our 737s to new MAX 8s. First MAX 8 arrives in November, second in December 3 next year. We're replacing the 5 old 737s, our aged 737s. They're safe, but they're 18, 19 years old. The product's old, and we do have disruptions given the age. So these new aircraft are going to be fantastic. They have beautiful interiors, in-flight entertainment throughout, and very modern. We've also refinanced our ATRs that fly domestically. We had them financed offshore. We now do it locally, so we saved a lot of money. We've upgraded our twin otters. These are the aircraft that do small little islands where there are difficult or challenged runways. We've got 3 new ones and a 4th one arriving, so a complete new investment there. And then we're busy with a campaign to re-look at our Airbuses. So when I was introduced, you said, wow, we got new aircraft, you waved at them flying over. Well, guess what? Technologically now they surpassed. The new generation aircraft are made with composite materials. They fly 5 hours further. These fly, the existing 300s we have fly 10 hours. That's the maximum range. And on LA, for example, full load of passengers and baggage, we can only take 1 ton of fish. And there's a demand for 15 tons of fish a day. So Air New Zealand come in, take our fish, take it to Auckland, and take it to LA. And every day I see them fly, my stomach says, oh, there's our fish. So these new aircraft can carry the full 15 tons of fish and full load of aircraft. They can fly 15 hours, but they save 25% in fuel. Because they're made of composite materials, they're lighter. So our current aircraft are called classics. It's a frame with sheets of aluminium riveted to it, and it's heavier. They're great aircraft. They've made a lot of money for us, but time has passed on. So we need to grow, and in order to grow, I need to add aircraft. And so we're in this campaign to say, what is the right aircraft? There's our profitability. As you heard, we've gone from a 90 million loss up to a 95 million profit, and we've got a very attractive incentive scheme for our staff. Every year as profit improves, their incentive improves for management and staff. This past year, the management got $9,900 and the staff $4,400. And I was telling someone the other day that when we were about to announce it, I got emails from the staff that said, don't say the amount, because all the family are going to come and borrow money. So this is our growth trajectory over the next 10 years. So we have a new 5 and 10-year master plan. We're going to grow 8% a year. That's our target. 4% on existing routes and 4% a new route every year. So every other year I have to add an aircraft, and you can see how we're adding aircraft. So in the next 10 years, we'll go from the 16, we've now got 2 more, up to 18, and we'll keep growing. What does that mean? If we keep growing like this, accommodation, hotels have to grow, and the airport will have to keep growing. And we were saying, for every aircraft I add, there has to be at least 2 new hotels built to keep up with that capacity. So we have a very strong drive going forward. And you asked earlier, where are we going? That's where we're going. We're building a new simulator center in Nandi. We're going to have our own simulators. Our pilots won't have to travel all over the world, which today we struggle to get pilots to get simulator training. Every 6 months, their license have to be renewed, and they have to go through 2 simulator sessions. We've got them going to Singapore, you name it, even to Toulouse in France, in desperation to get them to get their simulator training. If it's up the road, we can do it overnight, and we can sell that time to third parties. We also will be building a school where we'll train ab initio. This means from school, pilots. And obviously having the simulators is the facility that we'll do it through. This is a significant investment. It's $32 million. It goes live in July next year. Then, in terms of the last critical success factor, which is new tools in the business to operate better, we've put a lot in. We've got AIMS, which is a rostering system. We've got DDS, which works out where every ticket sold in the world and why we never got it and what we did get, and where we need to go and target a travel agent or a tour operator to get the sales. We've got the Amadeus Travel Intelligence tool that also, again, helps us understand what's happening in terms of sales around the world and what we're missing out on. And then Revenue Integrity, it's a predator tool that goes every night into our bookings and deletes rubbish bookings. So agents still play a lot of games. God bless them. They mean good for their customer. Customer will walk in and say, I'm not sure if it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They do a booking in each and they put a dummy booking, a ticket number in. And we've got a system that now looks through. Santa Claus, delete, you know. All these funny names or dupes, as we call it, they put in. That's what Revenue Integrity does. Salesforce automation equips our sales teams with the information to go and deal properly with suppliers. And Pegasus is a training tool that we use for the pilots. We're also heavily involved in corporate social responsibility. We contributed significantly to COP23. We have a carbon offset program where for every takeoff we plant a tree. And last year we planted 5,000 trees. That's our staff, and I also help. Shanaz helps. We go and plant trees. And this year we've got a program to reduce, if not all, as many as we can, plastics on board the flight, and rather put paper wrappings around than plastic. We've also got a carbon offset program we're reviewing. This is where we will offer you the opportunity to buy credits, and the funds then go in a fund to do social responsibility work. We haven't implemented it yet. We're still researching it. And then, of course, these new aircraft that burn 25% less fuel will help with this program. We've also adopted the South Tavuni Primary School and Secondary School. When you fly, we ask you if you have spare change, give it to us, please, donate it. We take that money and we support the school. And sponsorship, very important for us. It's no longer Fiji Rugby, it's FijiAirWays Rugby. and we have scored enormously from this sponsorship. And we're very proud to be the sole main sponsor of Fiji Rugby. And we're also the sponsors of the Crusaders in Christchurch. So we have a foreign sponsorship as well. When you leave, we have this booklet for you. This booklet sets out everything I told you today. So I hope for the students it's going to be useful for you, and you can see our critical success factors, the strategic objectives, and how we've developed a program to take FijiAirWays to success. So I'd like to end. Rub your hands, please. Rub, 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 rub. Rub, rub. Turn to your partner. Give him a high five and say, thank you, partner. So ladies and gentlemen, Vinaka, thank you for the pleasure. Oh, there's one last thing I wanted to tell you about. Today we launched a new program called Fiji Friendly Fares. When you get home, you'll hear it on TV and you'll see it in the papers tomorrow. We want to say thank you to Fiji for the fantastic support you've given us as Fijians. And every Thursday at 12 o'clock, we will post some wild, cheap fares, domestic and international, first come, first serve. Go and buy.
Chief Executive Officer of FijiAirWays, Mr. Phil Yoon, members of the Advisory Committee, senior management, team of University of South Pacific, Acting Dean, Faculty of Business and Economics, Professor Arvind Patel, our special guests from the private sector, distinguished guests, and fellow students. It is my privilege to be here this evening, and on behalf of my fellow colleagues and the Faculty of Business and Economics, I would like to give a very hearty vote of thank you to Mr. Phil for gracing us and sharing with us the important lessons of being a good leader. While he was doing your speech there, sir, I came with just one piece of paper, but with the knowledge, with the inspiring presentation you have, I ended up writing so many notes, now I'm lost with what to say. Your presentation, it was very inspiring for us, our fellow students, and also the members of the faculty, to learn about being a good leader and also the characteristics of being a good leader as well, and having an awesome team. Before I continue, I would like to, I read this from Facebook. It says, eagles have an accurate vision. They have the ability to focus on something as far as 5 kilometers away. No matter the obstacles, the eagle will not move from his focus, from the prey, until he grabs it. And in this case, the meaning of this is have a vision and remain focused, no matter what the obstacles, and you will succeed. In this case, your FJ team. FJ team is the plane, your awesome team, and you are the captain of that plane. You have a vision. Even though you just joined in 2015, within those 3 years, so there was a lot of improvement, and the strategic plan that you have presented to us with the success of FijiAirWays, you managed to, your passenger growth has managed to increase from 4% to 12.6%. Like what I mentioned, there's so many, if I have to read from this, I will be here whole night. But let me cut this short. What I really love about your presentation is with your the strategic plan that you have come up with the team, with the awesome team. You have your vision, your mission, and the strategic objectives with your critical success factors, and also the improvements, the implementations. What I love most about it is you have customer focus on it. Okay, with a service, we all agree, my colleagues, that we learn about customer focus. You mentioned about your customer service in there as well. So despite in your plan, your customer focus is all, you always have your customers in all your plans, involved in all your plans, apart from your team. Your customer focus, you also mentioned about training you train your process, but you educate your service. I love that. That's being proactive as well. You mentioned before families come in, they've been told by staff, or you can have this, whatever before they ask for it, everything is given to them. And I hope my colleagues will be able to learn as much as myself tonight with all the qualities, good qualities, the qualities that you have mentioned tonight. What we also learned from you tonight as well is you and your team were able to identify your challenges, and then you analyzed it, and you're able to come up with solutions. And that's the reason why FijiAirWays is successful so far up till today. We hope that whoever is here tonight will be able to learn and will be able to implement, go back, especially for our students with the projects, will be able to implement what you've learned from the presentation tonight. Now, thank you so much, sir. And also, I would like to take this opportunity as well to thank the Dean and also the Graduate School of Business for the enormous cooperation organizing for us to have the opportunity to come and listen to Mr. Filion. Mr. Filion, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for being with us here this evening as well. And before I end my vote of thanks, I would like to ask my colleagues to please, if we can show our appreciation in our usual manner. I would also like to wish you and your awesome team the best in your 5 to 10 years plan as well, and also when you go back. And I would like to call our Mr. Professor Patel, our acting dean, if he can come and present the certificate and our token of thank you to Mr. Filion.
I'd like to say a few words before I pass on this token of thank you to Mr. Filion for very enlightening lecture. Must have taken weeks to put it together, to make it flow so beautifully. And it was so very entertaining. I was flying to US in February. Forgot my passport. Air Pacific kept the doors open for 3 extra minutes. Oh, sorry. FijiAirWays kept the door open for 3 extra minutes. And I would work on it. That was excellent service. One lesson I learned from presentation, and probably the only lesson that's going through my head, is I know when you're going to sting. Thanks, man. Thank you very much. And if I ever see you sitting in the dark corner in the restaurant, I also know what's happening. So thank you very much for this. This is a very small token. We can't actually provide the full value of what you've given to us. It's brilliant. We will ask your permission that we could put this recorded lecture online on our platform, and I think the university will write to you accordingly for your permission to put this online, because it's a very valuable lecture that is can be used for many years. Thank you very much.
One last comment. I never ever used the word plan, because I've learned the universe doesn't respect plans. So that's why we have a strategy. We keep reinventing, but no plan.
Hello, Mr. Andre. So I can see for FijiAirWays, you really emphasize on leadership development, right? So my question is how you choose and select your leader team? Thank you.
Right, sure. So when we talk our leadership today, we have general managers and executive general managers. Most of them were there when I arrived. But what I have got is a new team. We've taken what we call young talent. We're putting together 22 people who we've gone to every department and we looked for the high performers. We have a little performance assessment with criteria, and also just the general feedback we've had from their leadership of how they're performing. We've put this team together. It's cross-functional. It's across all departments. It's got a very high weighting of women because we have one of our key objectives under people is to grow women in leadership. Today I have 3 top executives in women, and I can tell you they've made a difference. So all this customer service improvement is Shanaz. We created a portfolio called Customer Experience. She's our executive general manager of customer experience and FijiLink, and they got enormous shoulders, much bigger than men, although they're only this size. And she's made a difference because women know that touch and feel in customer that men find difficult to see at times. I'm not saying they can't do it, but women just seem to have a better capability there. So we choose them through meritocracy. And we've got a nice team now, a cross-functional team, and we do a lot of coaching. So I don't know how many of you have ever heard of coaching. Now, the word coaching is used very sloppily. There's coaching, there's training, there's mentoring, and there's consultancy. They're all different. Training, as you know, is classroom. Mentoring is you walk the walk with a very experienced person in a discipline who teaches you that discipline. Consulting is telling, but coaching is a conversation. And it's a conversation to bring the best out in you, to teach you how to manage your meaning. Because we know that your meaning creates your state. So I see something, I hear something, I create a meaning. And most of us have about 9,000 patterns in our brain. And one of those patterns will play off and automatically create a state. And your state creates your behavior. So if you can manage that behavior through managing your meaning, you can perform better. And coaching is teaching you through conversation how to manage your meaning. It's a field called neurosemantics, and it's very, very effective. Now, my wife's a neurosemantic psychologist, and I have a hard time at home. I've got to be very careful what I say, because then I get this, darling, come and sit here. Do you understand everybody has a good intention? Then she pulls out NLP. Now, those of you who've done a bit of NLP will know it's all about how you think. So I get this how I think all the time. In fact, when I met her, she told me I was very bad in emotions. Real man, hiding in a cave, couldn't express myself. So there's a test you can do in the US called the Baron test. I did it, and the results came back, emotional cripple. So I then started Emotions 101 and Emotions 102. Today I'm better. I can express my feelings, and I can manage my thinking to a point. But she's the expert at it. So we choose people on meritocracy. And we take this team, and even our executives undergo coaching. And coaching is helping you think properly. When you've got a problem, what do? You're going to pull patterns out and think nonsense. And we always say, you can think nonsense. You do what we call constructs. You see, hear, or anticipate an issue, you create a construct. It's not true. It will never happen. It may never happen. But you cause pain, and you'll go through all this pain. So you can stand back and say, until it happens, I'm not worried, because I have enough resources in me to deal with anything. You wouldn't be where you are if you didn't have capabilities. Worry about the problem when it happens. So live the now. Focus on the now. And that's the whole concept. So we take our executives, have executive coaching, and this team has coaching, teaching them to think properly and bring the best out in them.
Thanks very much.
Good evening, sir. Most of the areas in your presentation was to do with customer service experience. My question is to do with the measurements. How do you measure your customer experience, especially the personality part, and how you identify people who actually stick out, or the ones that really perform well?
So you remember there are a few aspects of the program that I spoke about. The first is everyone has to step up. So they all have step-up plans which are measured and monitored. So we try to see who shines in that and who doesn't and who have problems. The second part is we have people that are nominated for awards and rewards. So we know who's performing and not performing and who stands out. The program is based on the fact that the Up Your Service education program gave you the foundation to have that common service language. And you know that this whole thing is based on a psychologist that took a blue gorilla. He took a gorilla, painted it blue, put it in a cage, and starved it for a week. Then he put a ladder in with a bunch of bananas on, and he had this big water cannon. And the gorilla, as they put the bananas, ran up the ladder and he sprayed it till it climbed down. And for 3 days, every time it tried to go up, he sprayed it. And eventually it gave up and sat in the corner. He put a second gorilla in that he painted blue, obviously water paint, so you could take it off. And the second gorilla did the same, went up the ladder, he sprayed it till it joined the other one in the corner. By the time he added the fourth gorilla, it automatically went and sat, never even went near the ladder. And that's culture. So culture is unspoken. Culture is a behavior that you pick up without even knowing. And we've got cultures that we don't like, and we're working on changing them. So the whole service program we have is about changing that culture. You inform it through action. So for example, our cabin crew have a 10-point, what we call perception list. When you get on board, how do they greet you? How do they seat you? When do they give you the menu? When do they take the drinks order? When do they serve the first drink? Is all spelt out in 10 steps. So there's no confusion, because I used to get on a flight and sometimes they take the order, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get a wet towel, sometimes you don't. Now it's very laid out, but we've taught them, step up, step up. If you see someone sleeping, don't go and poke them and say you have to eat now. You go and say, I see you're very tired, can I give you a duvet? Can I, you anticipate. So getting this culture of anticipatory service and having processes that are very clear and the education of how you serve is what the whole service culture we're trying to build in the company. It's a journey. We've done phase 1, we're into phase 2, and it's an ongoing journey. And Shanaz has a team. And from the top down, because if it doesn't happen from the top down, it will never happen.
Hello, sir. My question is based on your reservations department. I believe it's not in-house.
Yes.
Yep. From Mindpearl to Pacific Centacom. My question is actually divided into so many parts. Why the change in the outsourcing party, and in terms of aligning strategic goals between the two entities, because they are two different entities. How do you do that? And also, how do you look after employees who actually look after your reservations or those in the call center in terms of remuneration, in terms of staff incentives? I believe they play an important role in the organization. So that is my question. Thank you.
Do you have a friend working there?
I have family working there, yes.
It's clear. Okay, so I can tell you when I arrived there, they'd already done this deal. Pacific Centacom is a company that we own half, and a third party who are call center specialists own half. Why they moved there, I can't tell you. What I can tell you, it's here for the next 8 years. It's a 10-year deal. And yes, it is a challenge for us, because being in Suva and we're all in Nandi, when we have a disruption, we have a lot of difficulties in the communication. So we've had to put full-time staff from Nandi into the call center, who, when we have a disruption, we pull a group of them aside and we deal with the disruption. So we've had to put measures in place to overcome the fact that it's physically separated. Because in the airline business, we have a golden rule, all under one roof. If maintenance, pilots, finance, commercial are all under one roof, you have a damn good airline. When you split all over the place, you've got a lot of disconnects. And you have silos that are bigger than they should be. So it is a challenge we're looking at. And in fact, if you go to Nandi and you go by our hangar today, you'll see across the road this massive piece of ground, 10 acres, being bulldozed and prepared. Guess what? The call center in a few years' time will be in Nandi, right opposite our building, so that we can be in direct contact. It is a separate business. It has its own board. We don't determine the pay, but we have taken all the staff through the Up Your Service program. So it's a legacy, and we will do the best we can with it. But I can tell you they don't earn what FijiAirWays earn. They're not FijiAirWays. We have an interest in it. And there's a third party that owns 50%. You know, this issue of outsource, centralize is an ongoing issue in all businesses. Some days they'll say everything should be centralized. A few years later they'll say everything should be decentralized. There's no perfect answer. But it is challenging. We have moments. And that is why we're going to these apps. We've just developed an app. You can put it on your phone. We communicate with you through the app. We need you, obviously, your mobile number. We'll tell you when flights are delayed, when it's going to take off. It's a full communication. Because today we have to rely on the call center to do it. And the problem with a call center like that is they can only talk to you if they have your mobile number. And guess what? Tour operators and travel agents believe they own the customer. We, the airlines, think we own the customer. So you know what? No one wants to share their mobile number. So when we have a disruption, we can't contact the passenger. We've got to go to the agent. And after hours, they're sleeping. So the airlines have had to innovate and go with apps to overcome communication issues that you have with call centers and so on. But they do a good job. We do monitor it. Shanaz puts a lot of effort into her voice of customer system. So we have a voice of customer process where we do surveys with customers. At the end of calls, we contact customers. And all this feedback goes in a monthly report that is shared with our board and our executives. So we can see what is the barometer, the customer telling us. Is it getting better? What are the issues?
Mula, Mr. CEO. A question that I had prepared for your good self. Is there much ministerial influence or interference whatsoever that's affecting your strategic business development plans? And how are you addressing them, Naka?
You can see that the founding principles are put on right up front when we spoke of our strategic purpose, came from our shareholder. We have a majority shareholder and we have other shareholders. Those shareholders gave us those founding principles because of the economic value we have to the country, and that we're meeting those founding principles, we get nothing but fantastic support. So no influence and no interference. Fact. In my previous lives, other airlines, very different. South Africa was very, very different. So I can tell you there's very, I would say, negligible, if any, but it's actually not. We get a lot of support. And you'll see in my one slide, I said we encourage government, we ask them, keep your liberalisation controlled, because we need to be around. We are strategic. If things get tough in this country for whatever reason or in the world, other airlines will pull out because they look at their own pocket. They don't have the loyalty to the country that FijiAirWays has. They have a loyalty to their own shareholders in pocket. Our shareholder is the government of Fiji.
If there are no other questions, folks, thank you so much. Before you leave, we will be issuing booklets highlighting everything that I've already spoken about in this presentation from the FijiAirWays team. And on behalf of thank you so much for your presence here tonight. Vinaka.
Vinaka, thank you.